We don't have any need for recruiting right now because all recruiting's on hold.
Yeah.
We'll see if there's something. I went home that night thinking I don't have a job.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting episode with Mangoes Not Lemons. I am Damon Johansson, your host today, here with HR Mango. And we have a fun guest today in studio that I'm excited to introduce you guys to. His name is Ben Harper. Ben, I'll turn it over. Do a quick intro for the people.
I'm Ben Harper. I'm currently the CHRO for a medical device company in Salt Lake City. I've been there for the last 6 months or so, and I'm excited to be here. I've been in the HR world for about 20 years now.
Okay, so for people that don't know, what is CHRO?
The Chief Human Resource Officer. That's the head of HR for a company.
Okay, so you are on an executive level of HR. The interesting thing to note in human resources, there's a lot of companies, and you can tell me your opinion on this one, there's a lot of companies that don't have CHROs. They have VPs of HR and senior directors of HR, but there's not always a CHRO. Is that true?
Yeah, my last company, in fact, I was the VP and then the SVP of HR. They did not have a CHRO.
Okay, so...
Same functional capacity, though, ironically.
Oh, you're correct. So just so you guys are all aware, it's very, very good for companies that have a senior level HR person that's responsible for the human capital, that's responsible for all the employees in the workforce. It's very good to have a senior level HR person on the executive team. So when companies, I would say, let's throw out a number, over 1,000. You know, if they're over 1,000 people, there should be a senior HR person with a voice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming today and visiting. So tell us a little bit. We're going to talk about a career in HR. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of HR because that we want to be real. So tell me a little bit about what's your career path? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. So ironically, my daughter is she's going to college this fall, and she asked me about a career in HR and what that would entail. So I've been having a lot of these similar conversations with her.
Okay.
HR is not for everybody.
So this might be for his daughter too. So
yes.
What's her name?
Grace.
Grace, if you watch this, here you go.
There you go. So I started out my career, I thought I was going to be an orthodontist.
Really?
That, not a lot of people know I don't seem like an orthodontist. But
you would have been a great orthodontist.
I'm sure. But I went to meet with a school counselor. It was all the classes, the science classes. I like science, but I did not do well in chemistry, and I did not want it. That was the entire workload up front. Okay. I was like, not for me.
So they scared you away up front.
They scared me away up front. So I was at an interesting point. I was very analytical, and I don't know a lot of people that do this, but I went out and I made a whole list of the kind of lifestyle I want, the kind of working relationships, the kind of function I wanted, the hours I wanted.
Starting college, you did this.
Starting college.
Okay.
And then I went out and interviewed people in the neighborhood, professionals that I knew about their jobs, and came across.
For real?
Yeah.
Wow. Gung-ho.
It was an odd thing, but I really wanted to make sure that I knew what I was getting into. Okay. So I was just working on generals as I was doing this, and got my associates. And then I met with...
what college did you go to?
Utah State.
Okay, all right. Local?
Technically all of them.
Okay.
I went to the U for one semester before I served a mission.
Okay.
Then I went to Slick because that was the only one I could come into mid-semester.
Yeah.
Transferred to BYU for a semester, and I came in first day and they said, hey, all you HR people, we didn't have enough enrollees. You're now public relations majors. I didn't want to do PR.
Oh.
So the next semester I transferred up to Utah State.
Okay, and they had a full HR degree.
Yeah, Utah State has by far the best HR degree in the region. Like they specialize in HR there. So if you're looking for an HR degree, Utah State. Anyway, so I met with, ironically, it was my father-in-law who was in HR. He was VP of HR for a large company. Okay. And I went through, lifestyle pay, that kind of stuff, what my career might look like. And I thought, that provides me the variety in people and functions and whatnot that I want and need in a career. And so that's when I full on dove into HR and said that was going to be my career. At the time, 20 years ago, the HR degree was brand new. It wasn't super common. And in fact, I think for the first 10 years of my career, I was the only person I knew that had a formal HR degree.
Really?
Yet most of them, ironically, CPAs that realized they had a personality and didn't want to stare at numbers all day.
Well, mine, I got communications degree, which transitioned directly into HR and, Spanish and communications. Yeah. So that's how I got into HR and recruiting. So,
that's ironic.
But yeah, so a specialty in HR, Brand new. You got it. Okay. You graduated
So
with it.
I got a bachelor's in HR management with a minor in Portuguese.
Okay.
And then
Ai, fala português.
I follow.
Ai.
I finished the degree and I went to work at a company called IM Flash Technologies. It was an Intel Micron
Lehigh.
joint venture. Yeah, in Lehigh. What was awesome about that is you got to see how two major companies managed differently. We had two CEOs, one from each company. So we kind of got...
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's unusual.
Very
And you were a
unusual.
generalist?
I was a recruiter.
Oh, hired
I
as a
started
recruiter
out in
straight out of
recruiting.
college.
Yeah, straight out of college.
Don't skip that. That's an important detail.
I apologize.
Good career, recruiter.
Recruiters, it's great. Because you learn not just how to interview people, but how people are going to interview you. You learn what to put on a resume, what not to put on a resume.
What stands out and what makes you look bad.
Yes, and how to make it scannable. Because people don't realize you get 15 to 30 seconds of a resume review. Somebody's going to look through. If you don't have something that catches their eye, they're going to the next 100 resumes.
Correct.
So make it scannable when you're doing a resume. I thought that was going to be a 3 to 5 year career. I ended up staying at that company for 10 and a half years.
Oh, wow.
Not because...
Did you promote while you were there?
Yeah, so I spent 18 months in recruiting. And then I had the opportunity to go to Singapore and build a recruiting team there and do all of our systems, process, and transfer. And I still hold to this day, the only reason I did it was ATS system, applicant tracking systems were brand new.
Yeah.
And I took to that and I learned that system better than anybody else. And they're like, well, we need someone to go implement that at the new fab. So Ben's going to go. I had no business being there. I didn't have enough experience. I just knew the system well. So they let me go do that.
Right time, right place?
Yeah. It was a singular activity. That was in 2000.
They don't speak Portuguese there.
No. They speak English.
A lot of English.
English primary they have 4 primary languages. English is one of them. So you can conduct all business in English.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, it was very handy for me. So all my team spoke English. So we built a recruiting team, processes, and we were recruiting like mad. And it was 2007 into 2008. The downturn happened in 2008. And my year-long assignment turned into a 6-month assignment. And I still remember the exact number. We had hired 842 people in that 6 months. And then we had to shutter the plant because they said we put $1 billion into building the facility. It's another $3 to $4 billion to outfit it with all the tools and equipment to start manufacturing. We're not going to do that in the middle of a downturn. So I went home earlier than anticipated. And I came back to a new director who I didn't know. And I had a real unique opportunity in my career where I met with her and she said, I know we didn't promise you a job. We don't have any need for recruiting right now because all recruiting's on hold.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see if there's something. I went home that night thinking I don't have a job. I was pretty terrified, especially in 2008 where there weren't a lot of jobs.
Right. That's actually why HR Mango rents recruiters, so you don't have to deal with those up and downs. Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Excellent, though.
Okay.
That's very viable. And I came back the next day and she says, hey, we talked to the leadership team. All of the managers want you and we have 3 positions open. So you get this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pick where you want to go.
Were they all HR jobs? What
all
were the
HR jobs. So it was a
Okay.
compensation analyst, an organizational development specialist, and an employee relations HR business partner. And this was when HRBPs it was a burgeoning, people were still trying to figure out what it was.
Yeah, that's pretty new title.
Yeah, and I immediately said, oh, I want the OD. And I'm grateful that she said, well, go, why don't you interview with each of them and see how it would fit into your long-term career goals. And I went and met with the gal over OD, and she's great and visionary and had all these big projects and plans. And I was like, oh, this is the big sexy work. This is what I want to do. This is going to be awesome. And then I met with the comp
Those
analyst.
are the HR jobs that get cut in downturns.
They're really long-term projects.
Yes, they're
general.
slow to show results.
And I like a little bit of regular satisfaction accomplishments.
Fair. No, that's fair.
And so I met with the compensation analyst. It was interesting. I was like, I'm really good at Excel. I think this could be a good fit too, but I still think the other one. And then I met with the director of the business partner team.
Yeah.
And she just said, what do you want out of your career? Where do you want to go? And nobody else had asked me where I wanted to go. And I said, well, I'd eventually like to be a director or VP of HR.
Everyone just told you this is our job. And they
Yes.
didn't actually say, who's Ben? Tell us who's Ben. So that's awesome. Good interviewing tip for hiring managers. Ask the candidates,
Yeah.
what do you want to do?
Because it makes a big difference. If they're passionate about it and they want to get somewhere, show them how this career path gets you there.
Correct.
And that's exactly what she did. She was an amazing leader. And she said, if that's your goal, you want to be the head of HR someday, then this is the career path for you.
Okay.
I was like, okay, why?
Okay, that's
says,
cool.
because we have 360 leaders here. You will see how 360 different leaders lead.
That's the benefit of a business partner. You get exposure to all of it.
You will see good ones and bad ones. You'll know what to do and what not to do. You will get some compensation, some organizational development, some training, some coaching. She even said, you'll always have a compensation analyst to run the numbers. You just need to understand it. And this will give you that level of understanding because you'll do the application with leadership on it.
So much broader HR position.
Correct.
Because there's HR benefits, there's HR comp, you're right, those are very specific titles where a business partner gets a little bit of everything.
Yes, and that's what sold me on that. I like one of those things on my list from college was I wanted a great variety. I don't do well when things get static. In fact, if you look at my career, I've almost always been with building companies.
Yeah.
Companies that are growing aggressively. The two ramps that we did for those manufacturing facilities were the two most aggressive ramps in the history of the semiconductor industry.
Oh, wow.
And so I had a leader at one point tell me, I was like, why do you do this? Every 3 years, you bounce to go build a new facility. And he's like, you get addicted to the ramp. Status quo just becomes boring.
Well, it's exciting. It's exciting on the ramp. I've been involved with a few different ramps as well. And man, the energy, the positivity, everyone is working towards good growth. And that's addictive. There's definitely some positives there.
Yeah. So
okay.
at some point in there, while I was a business partner, I went back and got a master's, just an MBA, because I felt like I needed to get the breadth.
So MBA stands for?
Master's Business Administration.
Got to make sure everybody knows.
Sorry.
Acronyms are good, but we got to make sure we explain them all out there.
We use a lot of acronyms in HR.
Yeah, we do. I agree.
I had been doing that for, 4 or 5 years, three or 4 years. And my boss was leaving, and I was in the position to step into that role.
So still at I Am Flash.
Still at I Am Flash.
Wow, good. That's good.
So tenure. I moved from recruiting to business partnering to managing the business partner team. And then I had this kind of, intrinsic crisis moment. I'd had to deal with some tough stuff at work. I had 2 deaths and an employee suicide in like a very short window within like 6 or 8 weeks.
Wow.
And I remember going to my boss and I was like, I've done this for a long time. I think I've emotionally kind of hit the wall because I had to go tell those teams. One of them was Thanksgiving night. And I had to go in on Black Friday at 5 a.m. and tell this team that he and his son and one of his daughters had all died, and the wife and other daughter or son were in traction and like
critical condition,
not looking great. That's emotionally taxing. And so I went to my boss and I said, hey, look, I've been doing this for a number of years now. I feel like we've gotten to a good spot, but I probably need to try something else because I don't know how many more of these like really emotionally charged situations. I mean, I'll argue a termination or, walk
some
somebody
terminations
through
are hard though. Some
For
can
sure.
be when, if it's someone you know really well or someone you've been connected to really well. Same thing.
Yep. But you still have to do it. And I think people ask me all the time, how do you fire people? Well, one, it's a very small portion of what I do.
Correct.
Everyone thinks HR fires people. That's got to be less than 1% of what I do.
I would agree.
Terminations, RIFs, disciplinary actions, things like that, smaller portion.
And if a firing's done right, it's not a surprise. They know it's coming. They know they've been coached. They know they've been counseled, and it's not a surprise, and you're parting ways.
Yeah. So I feel like my job in those situations is to make sure, one, that everybody got a fair shake, that they knew the expectations, and then it's not me firing them. It's, I'm sorry, Damon, you didn't meet the expectation. It was very clear, and you chose or were unable to meet that expectation. Then it becomes really easy. The second part is, part of my personality and my intrinsic value is nobody loves doing those difficult conversations.
Right.
What I love is the ability to handle it well and feel like I left that person with as much dignity and respect as humanly possible in a difficult situation.
Fair, totally fair.
It's not a personal thing. This is a business decision. I've had to do a number of RIFs throughout my career. I'm sorry this is impacting you, but this is the decision we have to go. And I try and manage that as positively as possible. And so whether it's a tough conversation or a disciplinary conversation or a termination or a riff, it doesn't matter. I get enjoyment out of managing that as well as humanly possible and thinking I did that as good or better than anyone else could have done in that situation.
Fair enough.
So
that's a good example of how human resources works and why it's important. Okay.
And why finding the right personalities and people are important.
You are correct.
Because not everyone can do that. Not everybody wants to. And there are plenty of people that shy away from the tough convos. Much better to have the convo.
Yeah, I have clients that I work with, and the majority of what I do is coaching, counseling, and terminations. Because they're small company. Their company's typically under 100 people.
Yeah. And
I have a few different clients where they're like, hey, how do we help this person? And I'm the consultant to come in and give them a performance plan, talk to them and build them back up and give them define those, this is how you keep your job work. But then I'm also the one that leads the conversations when we have to say, thanks, it's not a good match for you. But I feel like if you do it with dignity, if you do it with respect, that you're parting on as good of terms as possible.
Yeah. Because we've all heard horror stories of how a termination went horribly wrong. I mean, I've had some crazy stories, but I don't feel like any of them have ever gone really wrong because we've prepared and managed it well, and it was not a surprise.
I've had one where the candidate got pretty mad. They were just mad because they tried to argue they didn't have a fair shake, and they tried to argue, but we've had the performance. We'd done everything right, so I didn't feel bad, and we just had to cut off the conversation. But most of them, if you do it right, go well.
Agreed.
Okay, so you were there, you were at this turning point, you went another direction.
So I went and had that conversation with my boss, who I'm still really close with to this day, and just said, I may need to look at some other role or something because this is that, and I was not feeling challenged. I mean, I think between the two.
Well, you've been there a long time.
Yeah.
That's actually the drawback, and I know we're getting short on time, so we'll have to keep rolling, but the drawback to HR is comfort. When you're with the company for a long time, you totally lack potential growth, potential opportunities to challenge yourself as an individual. And I'm glad you recognize that, but you were there a long time, they treated you well, so that's good. But when you changed, did you feel like?
So within about 6 months, they switched up the supervisors and or management structure, and I went over to manage total rewards.
Oh, same company still?
Same company.
Okay.
I knew I needed that piece to have the breadth in HR to be able to move up higher. And so I stayed there for another, 3 or 4 years.
So explain, some people might not know, total rewards in just a couple sentences, that it is an HR role. What is total rewards?
Total rewards encompasses compensation, so how you're paid, what you're paid, how we map to the market.
Okay. Yeah, payroll's not always in total rewards.
Sometimes it's finance.
Yep.
But
So, or any other special program. Did you facilitate parties or facilitate purchase programs for prizes?
Culture,
or
wellness programs. We had an on-site health clinic.
You can have a lot of fun with total rewards.
Oh yeah, we do 5Ks every year. We do.
So I actually tell people total rewards is where the happy HR people are. Because you don't have to do the terminations. You don't have to do the investigations. You're on the good side of the company.
True story.
So
after that, I'd been there for a few years, and my old boss called me up and said, and it was right about the time I was feeling like I looked at my 3-year roadmap and I said, well, this is what I've done the last 3 years. Where's the next challenge?
Yep.
That's a theme throughout my career, is if I'm not challenged, I get antsy.
Yeah.
But that was 10 and a half years where they kept me engaged and challenged and given opportunities. And he called me up and says, hey, I've got this sales organization that has never had HR. It hasn't been
the solar
successful.
one? Is this
yes,
okay.
I worked for a solar company.
That's where you and I first met?
That's right. And it took, he basically said, you're either going to be wildly successful or you're not going to be here in 3 months. So it was truly a sink or swim. I went over there.
This was VP of HR? What was the title? This was
just a director.
Director of HR.
Yeah,
okay.
Director of HR Business Partners. So I went over and I kind of built a team and processes and a culture around sales and sales accountability and ethics, went out and trained to them. And it's actually one of the things I'm most proud of in my career is how much we moved the needle in the culture from the types of issues we were investigating when I first started to the kind of low-level stuff we were investigating by the end of it. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. Good success story.
Yeah, and then they were acquired by another company, and I stayed there for a year managing the broader HR business partner team. And then the previous CEO that had started that company started a different company and reached out to see if I was interested in coming over and heading up, being the VP of HR for this new solar company.
Okay.
So I went there.
So very good career steps up.
Yeah.
So now VP.
Now I was a VP.
Another fast growth.
And I think about 8 or 10 months in, they promoted me to SVP. And so it was a good career opportunity for me. We built an incredible team there. And then unfortunately, a lot of their product was tied to interest rates.
And the Fed rate went up.
And volume went down, sales volume went down, and that became a challenge. And so after 2 years of first building for the first year and then slowly bringing it down to manageable levels, our HR team had gone from 52 to I think 6. Wow. And then they brought me in and said, we no longer need the high level HR, we just need a skeleton crew.
Yeah.
So they laid myself.
And I'm sure you saw it coming.
Oh yeah. I was surprised at the timing because I thought we had a little bit more to do, but it made sense when they told me. I was like, "Yep, I get it. I'm a high salary to keep on when we're not doing any strategic stuff and we're just keeping it afloat."
But it also pushed your comfort zone. It
Right.
pushed you out to look at the market again, and it's how you landed where you're at today.
Yeah. So now I'm at a company called Biomerics, and the greatest story I can say is they actually hit me up last August. And I interviewed, and I wasn't really interested, and they really wanted somebody that had medical device, so it was kind of a non-mutual fit.
Yeah.
And then in December, when I was looking, they reached back out through a mutual connection, and they're like, hey, they're a little more open. They've been through, there's not a medical device HR person that fits what they're looking for. Are you interested in revisiting? And I was interviewing at a whole bunch of places for similar jobs to what I had
remember
done.
you were telling me about some.
And they were all interesting, but none of them looked real challenging. It was all stuff I had done before.
Yeah.
And Biomerics came in and said, we've got this big challenge of merging all of these acquired companies and cultures and benefits and everything else together.
Yeah.
Man, I got excited.
That's pretty cool.
It was like one of the first times where I was interviewing and I'm like, ooh, I don't want to get my hopes up, but I really like this one. So it ended up being a great fit. And now I'm going, for the last 6 months, I've just been going through and building an HR team and processes and functions and aligning.
Are they
across all of
global?
our companies. Yeah, we have 13 national sites and 4 international.
Okay. So Ben, this super interesting career path. I think a lot of people don't realize they want to even go into HR. So you starting in college, figuring out where you wanted to go is less common.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know they want to go into recruiting, don't know they want to go into HR. They stumble into it because they have a good personality,
Yep.
or they stumble into it because they had a communications degree and they knew the right people. And so
Or because they're in a different function and they just say, hey, you're going to do HR too.
Yes.
That's frequently what happens in accounting. You're doing payroll. Well, just do some HR stuff too.
Yeah, it's organic. The company
Yeah.
says, I have a need.
As they
You're
grow.
nice. Come take this.
Yep.
So everybody, if you have any interest in learning about HR, there is a tremendous opportunity and a need for human resource people. Ben, thank you for coming today on the show.
Yeah,
I really appreciate your time. That is a very interesting journey, and it sounds like you are with a very cool company in a great position today.
Yeah.
So everyone, thanks for watching, and hope to catch you on the next episode.